Welcome to the Operators Association podcast. I'm your host, John Allen, former Navy SEAL and one of the co-founders of the Operators Association platform. Today marks our 88th podcast and our 21st installment of the Weird series. Today I have three weird topics / weirdly specific topics. The first one's going to be what I believe should be your core motivation for joining any of these pipelines, whether it's SEAL, Green Beret, MARSOC, PJ, any of the special operations pipelines. What I believe your why should be, your kind of core motivation, and also more specifically, how to figure that out, how to figure out what your core motivation is. For some of you, you may already know what this is, but I think it's important to reiterate. The second one is going to be what it's like to be the buddy on a dive. Basically, what it's like to be in total darkness and be completely useless for hours on end, and have no idea where you're going. And then lastly, I'm going to cover fairly briefly what happens on the final day of BUDS training. So that's the 6-month selection course for SEAL training, because you're actually out on an island and all this misery is happening for about a month. And then like on the last day before you go back, it ends. So you're like done with BUDS, but you're still at the location. And so there's a 12-hour period there where some interesting things happen. So that's our podcast for today. So to start, we're going to start with what should be your core motivation when you're thinking about joining the SEAL teams, becoming a Green Beret, any of the other special operations groups. Everybody's got their own reason. And I think that a lot of people, me included, when I was, aspiring to become a Navy SEAL, everybody's kind of constantly looking to validate their reasons for going. They may not be literally asking people, hey, is this a strong enough reason for why I want to be a Navy SEAL? Everybody is thinking it though, whether they're asking outright or they're just thinking it. It's on everybody's mind, because the one thing everybody seems to understand when you begin to research any of these pipelines, these special operations pipelines, is, you gotta want it. And I'm air quoting you gotta want it. You gotta want it. And no one really knows how to articulate that. And the people that have successfully completed training, even if they try really hard to explain what motivated them to keep going when it got hard, oftentimes it falls pretty short. Because what they're saying motivated them, either it sounds way too generic. For example, I just wanted it more than the next guy. I tried really hard to get there. I didn't want to give up then. I just decided I wanted to do it. I wanted to serve my country. My father did, whatever it is. It just sounds way too generic, and you're like, okay, cool. Or even worse is folks that graduate and become operators. They're like, just don't quit. Like, that doesn't really help you either, right? And so I've come to the conclusion that it's actually pretty straightforward, the way you should think about what's motivating you, what your why, so to speak, is. For me, I would tell people when I was getting ready to be a SEAL, when I was training to be a SEAL, this is before I've actually entered the Navy, I would tell people that asked, including my family and friends, that I wanted to serve my country, that 9/11 had a profound impact on me. I watched my friends graduate high school and join the Marine Corps and deploy overseas. And I've just always been enamored with the military. And if I'm going to join the military, I want to go overseas and, fight the bad guys, and I want to do it with the best team. And that led me to the SEAL teams. And so that was effectively what my reasoning was. And it isn't that wasn't true, because it was true. Those are true things. I was enamored with the military. My friends did join the Marine Corps out of high school. A lot of them did. And I had a strong desire to want to go see combat. But That is not enough to want to go be a Navy SEAL. For me, that was not enough. Those are nice things that I said that kind of fit into the kind of cookie cutter, this is why I want to be a Navy SEAL thing. Patriotic, seeks a challenge, interested in the military. The real reason, guys, if we're being totally honest, was vanity. I saw becoming a SEAL as something very important to my image. Now, that was not the only reason I went. That's not the only reason I said I'm going to be a SEAL. But the core motivation for me was I have fucked up my life. I screwed up school. Could have been a good student. Didn't take that seriously. Blew it off to party. But now it's caught up to me because now I'm living in my mother's basement and I got nothing to show for anything I've done in my life. I've blown school out of the water. And even though I'll graduate college, I had such a bad first year that I'll never recover my GPA. I was a great baseball player. I didn't practice enough. I didn't take it seriously. Probably could have played collegiately. Probably could have played Division I even. Maybe. Didn't practice, blew it off, partied instead. So my athletic career is shot. I got in trouble with the police a fair amount. Nothing crazy like misdemeanor stuff, but I had, call it a record. I was a guy that had all the aptitude in the world and all the talent in the world, I think, but I threw it away to party and be an idiot. And it all came crashing down on me after I got booted from school after my first year in college. And I'm living in my mom's basement, and it just dawned on me that I had blown it. And so with the interest in the military existing, I was interested in the military. And when I, thought about what were some of the things who were some of the people that I looked up to the most, it was people in the military. And the military was something that interested me. But when I thought about the SEAL teams, I looked at the SEAL teams as my get out of jail free card. That my image at the time was bad. I came from a household where my sister had won a Pulitzer Prize, which is like the highest award you can win in journalism. My father also had separately won a Pulitzer Prize. My sister, at the time my other sister was younger than me, or is still, believe it or not, she's still younger than me. She was showing all signs that she was going to be unbelievably successful. And so she works in a Harvard lab as a scientist and is working on her PhD at Tufts. My mom has she's a master's degree, professional writer. The point was, it was like everybody in my immediate family was like killing it. And I was the idiot that got in trouble and blew up school, blew up sports, hadn't done anything. And I saw the SEAL teams as the thing that would get me out of jail. My get out of jail free card was, I have the perfect thing that will overwrite the bullshit that I've created in my life. Just becoming, and this, I don't mean any disrespect, just joining the military wasn't enough for me. I wanted to join the military, for sure, but I wanted to be a Navy SEAL because that way people would know that John Allen became a fucking Navy SEAL. And that mattered to me. It mattered so much to me that I would not be the guy that screwed everything up, but rather the guy that screwed stuff up but got his shit together and did something that was actually important with his life. He became a Navy SEAL. He isn't a screw up. He's a guy that's successful. He's a guy that's doing something worth his time. He's fighting for us. He's a hero. He's this, he's that. The truth is, that mattered so much to me that I could fix my image. And simultaneously, I was interested in serving my country. I did want to go overseas. I did look up to people in the military, but it was frankly the vanity angle that I really latched onto. And so the reason I say all this is not because you should use vanity. Believe me, I'm not trying to suggest that you're all vain. What I'm saying is I fundamentally understood that. I didn't tell people this, but I understood that the reason I wanted to finish is to be able to tell people that I was a fucking Navy SEAL. Now, broadcasting it, no. But to my family, to my friends, to my peers, I wanted them to see that I wasn't a screw up. I wanted them to know that I wasn't a screw up. And I wanted to do all the things I'd mentioned before, which was I wanted to serve overseas. The military mattered to me. 9/11 did have a profound impact on me, but for me, it was really this is the get out of jail free card. So when you're thinking about whatever path you want to go on, you must have the real reason you want to go in hand. You have to know what it is. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's pure vanity. Like, it doesn't make me look good to say right now to you all that vanity played a role in becoming a SEAL. But it's my role to show you that that's the truth. And you have your own truth, whatever it is, whatever the thing is that's driving you forward in life. Listen to it. Don't feel bad about having certain motivations. Know what they are. Don't try to convince yourself of some amazing reason, like, oh, my family has a rich military tradition and I just want to continue the tradition. Now, if that literally matters to you and that really is the thing that's driving you forward, great. But for most people, it probably won't be because we're human and we have our own motivations. So this is what I think you should do. Tonight, or whenever you're listening to this, when you have some time by yourself, just try to come up with the simplest explanation for why you want to be a X, SEAL, Green Beret, astronaut, business owner, whatever it is. Just say it to yourself. Like literally say it. Put it into words. What is the thing that is actually driving you forward? Who cares what it is? It just has to be something you care about. Vanity, tradition, killing people, making $1 million, it doesn't matter. Whatever is actually the thing or things you care about. And then once you figure it out, because it should actually be relatively easy to do if you're honest with yourself, because it's probably not a holy answer. It's probably a pretty real answer. Once you figure that out, you actually assess if that's something if that's really pulling you in the direction of the SEAL teams or, being a Green Beret or something, or if you have this unsatiable desire to just make a bunch of money or whatever it is. Figure out what your real thing is that's pushing you towards, for example, the SEAL teams. If it's fame, and again, just bear with me here. If it's fame, there are other ways to be famous. If it's money, there's certainly other things that make more money. The point is figure out what your core motivation is and make sure it lines up with becoming a SEAL, a Green Beret, whatever it is. Don't convince yourself becoming a SEAL will answer this calling. Figure out what your calling is and make sure that the thing you're aiming for is actually going to answer your calling. Because the calling isn't going to change. Do you see what I'm saying? Anyways, do some honest self-reflection, figure out what that core motivation is, and then examine the path you're on. And have no shame in changing your mind. If you actually know what you want in life, never, ever, ever silence it. At least internally. You got to know what you want, and you got to always be pointing towards the thing that you want. Also, with that in mind, if you are still 100% on being a SEAL, whatever, do have the catch-all, I want to serve my country, I want to, serve with the best, and, I want to do something that matters. You do want to have the cookie cutter answer, mostly because it just saves you from needing to try to articulate your real motivations. Even if your real motivations are totally pure, they're your own, and you really don't need people examining your pure, real, actual motivations. You just need to understand what they are. So have your cookie cutter version that you tell people, keeps people happy, but you always stay true to whatever it is that's actually pushing you forward. And never just jump into things and convince yourself that they're the right thing to do unless you're sure that it lines up with your core motivations, literally whatever they are. Okay, so that's the first one. I got into that one because it matters. I'm going to do two quick ones because I actually had to put my daughter to bed. And so I'll be quick on the next two. And I feel like I went in depth in the first one, so you guys aren't getting shortchanged. Real quick, when you dive in the SEAL teams, you dive in pairs. and you're actually tethered by a 6-foot long rope that even when you get to the SEAL team, this is not just training, this is like how you dive. Now, I have never done a real world diving operation, but I've certainly trained to it, and I've done real world training operations. You're always tethered, and you're always with at least one person. And there's always a driver and a buddy. Those are the two names of the positions. The driver has what's called the tack board, and it's this little board, this little like black, like almost looks like a home plate on a baseball field. And there's a compass, you have a watch on there, you have your depth gauge is on there, and it's just very simple. It's not like high speed at all. And the driver is in charge of making sure you're going in the right direction. And the buddy, all they have is a depth gauge and a wristwatch. And there's certainly things that you're in charge of as the buddy, but most of the time, because we dive at night, you're tethered to the driver who's basically setting the course, and you're just swimming on top of them in total darkness, total silence for hours and hours and hours. It is so weird. Like, especially if there's not much bioluminescence, that stuff that kicks up in the water, that's like these green floaty things that like are bright. If you're just swimming through the water column, especially if it's like really deep and you're at like 20 feet, but there's a lot of space between you and the actual ocean floor, no bioluminescence, and it's just like silence, cold, black, and you're not doing anything. You're just kicking. It's weird. I remember the first couple times I was the buddy, it's hard to occupy your mind because sometimes you're underwater for hours at a clip. And that can be very disorienting. Sometimes it's kind of nice because when you're getting graded for dives, the buddy is, you ultimately will face the same fate as the driver because you're in it together. If you screw up the dive, you're both getting in trouble. But it's like the onus is kind of off of you. Like between the two of you, it's the driver's fault if you screw up the dive. But you both will plan the dive before you get in. You'll know all the legs, all the times, all the turns, but it's really on the driver to communicate those things and actually do it. So it's just very weird being the buddy. Last up. In BUD/S, so the 6-month selection course for SEAL training, you finished the last month of training out on San Clemente Island. And you do 30 days of nonstop training. You don't have weekends. It's actually kind of brutal. Nobody really really fails anything out there. It's just like a grind. You're working all the day. You're working long days. You're getting the crap beat out of you like it's first phase, but you're in third phase. And it's not uncommon to be really at odds with your instructors by the end. Not all of them, and I'm not saying this is universal, but it's like the students recognize that they're about to be done with BUD/S. They don't act entitled, but they know it's coming to an end, and statistically, no one's going to fail in third phase. Really, barring some serious anomalies, everybody's going to graduate, but the physical brutality of the phase can just get really frustrating for the class, and you start to notice that people are a little bit annoyed at how badly they're being treated towards the end of being on the island, the last week in particular. It's like, can you please just give us a little bit of a break? We're about to be done. We've been doing this for over 5 months and change. Can we please just slow it down? But no, BUD/S is in your face shitty until the very end. But you finish on a Friday night, the last day of training, and the instructors that day are jerks to you all day. And then it's 10 p.m. and BUD/S is done. And they're like, come hang out with the instructors. The class goes and has a party with the instructors, which is a subdued party. I mean, there's not really anything going on. You just sit around a fire and it's supposed to be fun and nice, but it's actually kind of awkward because the class doesn't really like the instructors. And it's it's so hard to go from being a student, which you just were minutes ago, to being friends and peers with your instructors. And so it's very awkward. And it lasts for a few hours. And it's very anticlimactic where, finally after you do a little bonfire and you do they ask you to do skits, which is a thing in Buds, where at the end of each phase, you have students in your class that'll like tell funny jokes and stuff and make fun of the instructors. And I had to do the skits in third phase. I had to do them every time pretty much. But you'll do skits and it's like everyone's kind of jokey, but it's like super awkward. Then you go back to your barracks and you're like, this is so weird. Like Buds just suddenly comes to an end. And the instructors are like, all right, we're friends now. But you're like, no, we're not friends. And then next day you get up and you have a flight off the island, but it's like a few hours in the morning before you actually get on the plane. And it's like this weird morning where like every other morning on the island, it was like hell. And then this morning you're just like walking around getting coffee and like, oh, we're all friends here. We're just going to forget the past 30 days. And everyone's like so awkward. But it feels good to be done. And you get back to the mainland and then finally that's when it sinks in that you're done with Buds. So I know I kind of went short on the last two, but I really wanted to drive home that first one. Know your core motivation, no matter what it is, and stay true to it. And whatever you do, don't do things and convince yourself those are the right things to do. You should start with your why. And I'm totally ripping off Simon Sinek here, starting with your why. Start with what is the thing I want more than anything else, whatever it is. It doesn't matter how vain it is or how superficial it is. Figure out what that is and then make sure that the path that you are electing to go down lines up with that core truth. If it doesn't, you need to stop, or at a minimum you need to pause and think real hard about your next move, because it might not feel like it, but there are massive ripple effects with bad life decisions even when you're young. Just don't do something you're going to regret. That's all. It's fine to go down a path and not make it. I say that with a grain of salt. I'm not saying it's fine, but doing the thing you want to do for the right reasons, but it doesn't work out, is not something you regret. Doing something you don't want to do, but convincing yourself you do, even though you know you don't, and it doesn't work out, or it works out and you're saddled in a job you hate, like those aren't things you want to be. That's not a situation you want. So just figure out that core truth is, do some serious, real self-evaluation, and then just have that truth in hand, whatever it is, no matter how ugly it is, because it's the truth. And never let it go, because the truth is the truth. All right, guys, this one got more passionate than I expected it to, but hopefully it's useful. Happy to follow up with any of you guys. And that's going to do it. All right, see you guys.